All right, and joining us today is Chris Dooley, who is a longtime basketball coach and author of the Can't Miss the Kevin Pangos Story. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Lovely winter wonderland here in Burlington.
Yeah, we were just chatting off air there. You guys are getting all the snow, we're getting all the rain here in Ottawa.
Yeah, it's usually the other way around.
Yeah. So, wanted to start off with the book itself there. And, in preparing for this interview, we were going over some of your previous interviews and came across an interesting quote where you said, you're not so much an author as you are a basketball coach who happened to write a book. Why was it important for you to sort of make that distinction ahead of the release of this book here?
I think basically the whole idea is that I don't have any history at all as a writer. The Can't Miss is my first attempt at a book, and I've spent years coaching basketball at a whole bunch of different levels. And I think it's sort of cool that somebody who loves basketball, has spent his life in basketball, dealing with high-level players all along, gets to spend 5 years following one specific elite athlete.
Yeah. And you just touched on it right there. The book obviously centers around Kevin, right? And he had a very successful career at Gonzaga. He had success at the provincial level, at the national level, everywhere else in between there. And you actually have a fairly close relationship with the Pangos family just in general. So at what point did sort of the seed of the book get planted in your head as far as, hey, let's write a book and let's have Kevin sort of be the focus of it?
Well, that's sort of a long story, but Bill and I coached the provincial team together in the mid 80s. And, OBA hooked this guy up and this guy up and coached together. And we didn't know each other very well. And we became best friends, and we're still best friends to this day. And then Kevin and Kayla came along, Pangoses, and my son Daniel, my daughter Nicole came along. And we were at Camp Olympia, and we were doing basketball stuff, all that. And then I read a book, very great book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Mm-hmm. And all of what Malcolm Gladwell wrote about wasn't the idea that all these people are great, but it's the reasons why they are great and what they take advantage of. And at the same time, that summer, Kevin was invited to the national team tryout. And he was 16 years old. Leo was the coach, and he went into that camp and just said, I'm just going to go for it. Doesn't matter, I'm 16 years old. I'm just going to go for it. And he went for it. He impressed everybody, and they decided to take him on a trip to Italy. So he was the youngest player ever to play for Canada's national senior men's team. And then I started thinking, maybe Kevin, this kid I've known since running around at Olympia in diapers and rubber boots, maybe he's an outlier, because he's been a quality guy all along, but man, oh man, 16 years old on the national team. And then it just started to, from there, it started to percolate in my mind.
Yeah. So, when you first approached the family and, you told Kevin that he was, hey, I'm going to write a book about you. What was his initial reaction? Was he confused? Was he nervous? Was he excited?
Well, Bill and Patty, his parents, were both a little bit shocked at the whole idea. Kevin was, like he is all the time, he was nonplussed. It was just, okay, you want to write a book. But Patty and Bill both sort of had the idea that he hasn't done anything yet. And I said, well, it isn't what he's done. It is a little bit about the path that he's been on so far. But I really believe, this is before Gonzaga. Mm-hmm. And I said that I really believe that there's something here. It's a great story. And the number of people in the basketball delivery system in Canada that had their hands in helping Kevin, it's absolutely amazing. And that's what I sold them on, is it's not about Kevin. It's about basketball in Canada and using Kevin's story as an example.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head right there, right? Obviously Kevin is a large focus of the book, but it's sort of the larger, it takes a village mentality that is one of the themes that just, comes up again and again and again in it there.
Yeah.
So is that mentality, do you find, now that we're sort of evolved into this AAU social media, basketball trainer saying, I produce this player, have we sort of gotten away from that, it takes a village mentality? Or what's your sort of take on just the landscape of basketball right
now? Well, I think if I can back up a little bit, I think that when Kevin was in his last year of high school in Holland Landing, Dr. Dennison, there was a lot of pressure on him to go to a prep school, because he was a sort of a poster child for what was happening in basketball Canada. And it was at the sort of the precipice of this whole prep school mentality of, well, it's not good enough in Canada. You got to go to Florida, or you got to go to somewhere else. Yeah. And Kevin analyzed that with Bill and Patty, obviously, and sort of felt the idea that I can get what I need in terms of training, in terms of competition, in terms of scheduling, by surrounding myself with people like Roy Rana, like Leo Routens, like Sam Gibbs from the national team. Matt Nickel, a great trainer, physical trainer, that he felt he didn't need to go. And he said, I want to be a kid. These are all my good friends. I want to be with them. This is my last year to be with them, because I'm going somewhere else later. So I think now a little bit the sense of, you have to go to prep school. Yeah. And I don't really believe that. I believe that, the connections that you have by what you play. I don't think you really, really need that. But I mean, Kevin's 8 years out of graduating high school, and the whole world has changed since then, so it's funny in terms of basketball, because it is exciting for Canada, but I just worry a little bit that the right people are helping these kids.
Yeah. And I mean, you've been involved, as you said, in basketball from the grassroots all the way up to the highest levels in Ontario and beyond there. And, obviously a lot has changed since the 80s there, but what are some of the things that you think, whether it's the province or even just Basketball Canada, have gotten better at, and what are the things that they're doing well these days to help grow the game and promote, growth within the players?
Well, one of the things I write about in the book is I analyze the careers of Kevin Pangos, Steve Nash, and Jay Triano, and I show that, like, Jay was so funny with me, telling me that he was like senior in high school before he really, really got a sense of what he could do, and what happened. And then Nash had a little bit more, but nobody was recruiting him. And even though everything he was doing in World Championships in '94, all that sort of stuff, there still wasn't the programming that Kevin had. And that's one of the things that comes out in Outliers, is that Kevin had the opportunity to take advantage of a lot of programs. And I think the best thing, and it might be a FIBA level, but we're establishing kids earlier and earlier. When I coached the provincial team, it was U19. I did it for 4 years, and it was U19 guys. And we had Mano Watsa, as an example, who was a university player already. And some provinces had a whole bunch of university players that were playing on their provincial teams. Well, and before me, it was under 21. And now they make it under 17 as the highest level. And I think that's awesome, because that means that 14, 15-year-old kids, and there's U15, there's U17. I think that those sort of opportunities, like Kevin is a good example, that he was never nervous at any games at Gonzaga, 6,000, 10,000, doesn't matter how many people, because he was prepared. And he was prepared because of his time in the gym, but also he was prepared because he got so much competition and training at the highest levels very, very young, that it was just accepted that these guys got a shot at the NBA.
Yeah. And if we look at maybe the flip side of the coin there, what are some of the things that, some of these organizations need to be doing a better job of in order to support that growth of the players moving forward?
Well, one thing, and this kid I'm dealing with right now, the whole idea of don't be the next Steve Nash, or don't be the next Kevin Pangos, just be your best. And that should be the mentality. And I think the whole idea of don't worry about the rankings, and people rank and understand why they do that. And the connections around the world are phenomenal. And Canada's success in basketball, I think, is going to continue to grow. But I do think that a values-based sense of it still comes down to you getting your butt in the gym, improving at what you're weak at, and maximizing your skill level.
Yeah. And I mean, there's sort of two schools of thought, if you will, around it there. There's obviously the multi-sport advocates who say play as many sports as you can, you know, all through growing up. And then there's the early specialization advocates as well, too, there. Where do you sort of fall on that spectrum? And what is sort of that sweet spot age that you would recommend, you know, people start focusing that, you know what, Timmy's got a shot at whatever, getting a Div 1 scholarship here. He should start focusing on whatever, basketball only or hockey only or football only.
Well, I think that's one of the best things that Canada basketball has done is they learn to train, and the whole process of identifying the ages where people should go. Kevin played all sports until he was in grade 11, and grade 12, his last year of at Denison's, when he went full basketball. Mm-hmm. And that's just one example. I feel that the hype of all of these players, which is awesome, and the talent of all of these guys that are in the NBA and knocking on the door of the NBA has created a sense of, well, they can do it, I can do it. Mm-hmm. And then I got to do it now. And a lot of parents, a lot of people think, well, you know, your grade 8 year is a big year. And I'm thinking, I don't think anybody really cares that you won the county championship at your elementary school. I think that the mentality should be, again, about growth. And I think that when you're in grade 9, grade 10, you're starting to evolve. Depends on puberty, it depends on all sorts of issues. But I do think that if you play multiple sports, like Kevin was a great hockey player, Kevin was a great volleyball player, very different from basketball, but he took conceptual stuff from those sports and helped him become a better basketball player.
Yeah. So, I mean, if there was a kid who was listening to this episode right now who's thinking, you know what, I could be the next Kevin Pangos, or I want to follow a similar path as he did there, what would be your advice as far as tangible things that they can do to put them on the right track?
Meaning other than read my book? I think the biggest thing that they need to do is attach themselves to good coaching. Mm-hmm. Good programs, and there's good programs all over the place, and make sure that you listen and get with people that, like at my age I can coach or whatever, but there's guys that, you know, that are just finished their university careers who are involved, and I think that the more information you can gather and get serious about what you really want to do, that's really going to help you.
Yeah. And, you know, you've got experience at those high elite levels, whether it's, you know, the provincial team or whatever. And, you know, you've been the one who has overseen some of the training camps and the cuts and all of that as well, too. Yeah. So from a strictly coaching perspective, if you're, you know, an athlete who gets invited to attend one of these things, what are coaches looking for when everyone who is attending is sort of at that elite level there? What are the things that make you stand out in a tryout?
Well, number one, listen with your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times kids, like, you're talking and you can just tell the kids they're thinking ahead of what's the next drill or how I did in the last competition or whatever, instead of just listening with your eyes, because a lot of coaches notice that whole idea that this kid, is he really or she really coachable? And I always say coachable means changeable, that here you've got, you know, you're an awesome physical talent, whatever, but to fit into the other 4 people on the floor, here's what we've got to do. And I think that the being there early, like if practice starts at 2, you're there at 1:30. Mm-hmm. You hustle after everything. You know, because one of the things that when I was involved at the University of Guelph and I'm recruiting, I would watch a player and almost hope that they would look bad. Mm-hmm. And they would screw up, because then you can really start to see the internal aspects of that person's, you know, can we coach this kid for 4 years? You know, something bad happens, he gets on, you know, the refs, or he gets on he gets on his teammates, all of that sort of stuff. And I think that just working hard, listen with your eyes, and, you know, outwork everybody. Because if you know, I worked with Dave Smart for 4 years. And one of the things I love about Dave is that he always talks about the defense. Mm-hmm. Because the offense is at that level, the offense is going to take care of itself. We're going to find guys who can shoot. We can find guys that can do this. all that, but can you defend? Because if you can't defend your position, or now it's becoming multiple positions, you're not as valuable to the team.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I mean, speaking of work there, you know, looking back on it, having done both now, what is tougher work for you? Becoming an author and writing a book, or being a coach?
They're very similar, actually. One of the things that I've found in writing the book is there's a lot of time where it's not lonely, but alone. But then, like, it takes a village to create a player, raise a child. It takes a village to write a book. Mm-hmm. And that's what's cool about it, is my connections in basketball really helped me once I committed to doing the book on Kevin. Like, I thought I was going to write a book about a kid that I really admired, and he was doing well as a 16-year-old, and he was going to get a scholarship somewhere. But once, it was like an onion. Once I started to peel back all the different things, you know, it involves immigration of his grandparents. It involves, you know, all the different guards before Kevin at Gonzaga, Dan Dickau, and all those guys. And I think that basketball is that too. That you want to win, you want to do well. But when I wrote the book, to be honest, I didn't care about selling one copy mm-hmm. until the book is done. And then the next stage starts. So sort of like for coaching a basketball, is you're picking your team, or you're looking at you're putting your schedule together. Well, then it becomes a daily habitual, here's what we've got to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, obviously the experience didn't sour you too much, because you've actually got a new project in the works as well too, where you're going to be releasing a new book coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, and it's sort of cool because it does tie into Can't Miss and the Kevin Pangos story, because Olympia Sports Camp in Huntsville, Bill, back in the 80s, he got me involved in Olympia, and I've been there ever since. And there's a big part in the book about the attitude of Camp Olympia, of the idea that you're on a journey and you're going to maximize what you can do in that journey. So anyway, I got this idea about a year ago that, okay, sometimes in life, the hardest thing to do is something for the second time. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote a book. I pulled it off, very proud that I was the only one who had the idea of writing a book about this 17-year-old kid. And it pulled it off. But now doing Camp Olympia, it's a 47-year history of Camp Olympia, and it's just a massive job, but it's still values-based. The book is called A Hero's Journey, from Little Norway to Camp Olympia, because where the land is in Huntsville was a Norwegian Air Force base in the Second World War. So I wrote about that and connecting those men who trained there to what's going on at Camp Olympia now. So I'm very, very excited about how, you know, again, I'm at the stage right now. Okay, Chris, are you going to actually pull this off? Like, it's exciting. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah. Daunting task, I'm sure, though.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. But if it's not hard, it's not worth it. Yeah. You know, it's like, again, you can analyze back to a player or anything, like, you know, oh, this is hard. Yeah. They don't give out $1 million contracts. You go get them. Yeah. You know, and I think that one of the things that I like about, back to Kevin's attitude about the book too, is that it's daily, and I'm not comparing myself to my other book, or I'm not comparing myself to other authors. I'm going to be the best Chris Dooley book writer that I can be. And I think that this book, you know, like, it's the people that I've interviewed, I'm just going, oh my God, the stories here are beautiful, but now I got to write them. Yeah. You know, and bring out, because it's not my book. It is, I'm writing it. But it's not my book. It's everybody who's ever been involved in Camp Olympia's book. And basketball, a lot of people in basketball in Ontario mm-hmm. they've been through Camp Olympia for sure.
Yeah. No, definitely an iconic camp for sure there. So, yeah. I mean, where can people find you? Where can people get more information about the book there? You know, where's the best place to get all that?
Well, the book, there's a story there too. Kevin is so famous in the U.S. and the NCAA that I decided to get my book published, self-published by an organization in Indianapolis, because I thought most of my sales would be in the U.S. and then my connections in Canada would help me sell in Canada. Naive now that I look back on a little bit, because to buy a book in Canada, I put it in several, I really believe in independent bookstores. Mm-hmm. And I put a few, and I'm blanking on the name of the bookstore in Spark Street, where anyway, somewhere in Ottawa. But I put them in independent bookstores, but the best way is to email me. Mm-hmm. And email at coachdools71@gmail.com. And I will mail one that day. Just e-transfer me the money, and I'll send it out that day. And that way there's a personal touch to it, but it's also, this next book, it's going to be self-published again, but it's going to be, I'm going to make the use of big stores too. Because I think this is going to be, I really do think this could be huge.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, you know what? We're looking forward to your next book there. And for those that are listening, the first book is Can't Miss, the Kevin Pangos Story. Go out and, flip a quick email to Coach Dools there, and he's more than happy to send you a copy and procure you one.
Yeah, it's for sure. Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it.